Hello everyone. My name is Nissan and I'm a front-end developer at Bit. And today we are going to talk about a really interesting topic. We're going to talk about how to create independent React Native components. And the first thing we are going to do is we are going to let's create a new directory. Let's call it React Native components, and let's browse into it. Cool. And we can go ahead and initialize a new workspace, a new Bit Workspace right here. And when we create a workspace, so you can see now that we have a bitmap file which holds all the information about which components we have in our workspace, and the workspace JSON file, which is basically holds all the configurations for our workspace. So the first thing I'm going to do right now, copy this snippet right here. Here we go. And what this basically tells Bit is that we want to use this env, and this is actually a custom env I created from the base React Native env, but I'm going to use the base env. And this basically tells Bit that we want to have this env here in our generators aspect in Bit. So what we will have now is all the templates, all the component templates for the React Native env available in our workspace. So let's have a look. And you can see if I go Bit templates, sorry for that, Bit templates. And if I go with Bit templates, Bit will show me a list of all the templates available in my workspace. Yes, and we can see that we have the React Native and React Native JS and React Native env components. So this is really cool because we can create components with these templates really quick. So let's first create a React Native component. So Bit create React Native, and let's create a spinner. And we can also define our scope, and let's say this is my username on BitCloud, and I'm going to call this scope, let's say React Native. And cool. And this is going to create this component now in this scope. And soon you'll see that we can export components to our scope and import components from our scope, and this is really nice. And as you can see, the template created some files here for me. We have the implementation file, this is a spinner TSX. We have the test file with the documentation file, and we have the composition file, which basically helps us create all kind of compositions for our components. So anyone who wants to consume this component can quickly have a look of how it looks and how to use it. And of course, we have the main file, and this is where we export our API. This is what we expose for people who wants to consume this component. Okay, so first of all, let's go ahead and create the spinner. And I'm just gonna copy paste here a spinner that I already made in my blog post. It's a really cool spinner. Anyway, this is our spinner here. We also want to have the tests, right, to see that everything works well. And we also want to have the docs so people can read about this component and see how it works, and the compositions, right? Okay, so we have everything now, but before we do anything, you can see we have errors here because we haven't installed anything yet. So let's go ahead and install, and Bit automatically installs all of our dependencies for all the components that we have here, and React Native, and everything that we need. And after it, we'll also compile the component, of course, and then create this here in the node models folder. Let's wait for it for a second. Okay, cool. So now everything is installed. You can see we don't have the errors here anymore. And you can see we have all the packages here in our node modules. And now we can run bit start in order to start develop our component. So you can see it in the browser, and it's easier to develop it like that. But I also want to check that everything is okay. So I'm going to run bit status. And this is really a very useful command, so you should use it often. Okay, yeah, we see that everything is okay. The spinner, it's a new component because we haven't tagged it or snapped it yet, right? It's new and it's not exported, but it's here and it's okay. Okay, so we can see here what we can see. We can see hello from spinner, and this is not what we are supposed to see, right? Because maybe we haven't saved the file yet. So let's save all files. Okay, and now the dev server will compile everything again. Oh, and we can see it spinning around. Look at this amazing spinner here, right? I really like this spinner. Okay. Anyway, so now it's spinning here, and we can see all the composition. We can see the docs. It's really cool. We can see the dependencies of this component. Dependencies, it doesn't mean all the packages that we have installed. It really means what other components depend on it. At the moment, we haven't used any component yet, so it doesn't have any dependencies. And we can see the tests and the API reference here. You can see all the props and its type. It's really nice. And here we can see all the files, and it's really nice. And I just want to show you one more thing. Before I tag and export the component so we can use it anywhere or in any project, I want to show you something. I want to create another component. And I want to show it to you really quickly. I'm going to create an end component. Is basically the component that holds all the configuration for your development environment. So we can set your development environment for many components, and it really makes our lives as developers really easy. So bit create React, and let's call it my React, and right, and sorry, React native, right? And also here we have to have native. Cool. And now we're going to use the same scope, of course. It's 770 React native. And Bit is going to create this component for us from the template like you saw before. And I just want to explain really briefly about this component because this is very, very important to know when you create Bit components. You have to know about this end component. And as you can see here, we have all the configuration for our components. So we have peer dependencies and the dev dependencies. And this is the dev dependencies that we will have for our component. And we have all kind of the configuration here. And here you can see this is a class that it extends the React Native end, right? Because we created a custom end that extends the base React Native end. And you can see what tools we use to lint our component, to test our component, to compile our component, to preview, to create the compositions for our component, to build the component, and so on and so forth. There are many more things to learn here, and I really encourage you to go to their official docs and learn about it. Once you get the end component thing, you're really going to master component-based engineering. So now what we're going to do is to tag our components to release a version for our component. So let's go ahead and say release a spinner and by the way, I didn't set the custom end for my component, but if you want to really use the end for your component, so you have to set the end for your component. But right now it basically has the base end. So yeah, you can read more about it in their official docs. So we have an issue here. Okay, yeah, because we created this end, right? But we haven't run bit install. So bit basically tells us that we have missing dependencies, that we don't have these dependencies right now in our normal models. So we're going to run pit install again. Okay. Yeah, and here we go, it's finished. And you know what, just to show you how to set an end for your component, I'm going to do it right now, bit and set. And I'm going to go say the component name that I want to set it with. Then I'm going to write the end I'm going to use. Right, it's React. This is the scope name, and the component name is my React native end. Okay, now Bit is going to set this end component for this UI component. So every time this UI Bit runs tests and builds this component, then we create previews for this component, it's going to use this configuration here that we have in this component. Okay, so let's go ahead and now tag the components that we have in our workspace. And meanwhile, okay, let's just have a quick look here. Okay, so yeah, I see that with these dependencies haven't been installed for some reason. So I'm going to use this command, which basically is going to see which packages I haven't installed, and Bit is going to install them for me. And while we are doing this, we can go ahead to Bit Cloud, and I can already create the scope, right? The scope that I'm going to export the components, remote scope. So anyone who wants to consume this component can just install it in his project and enjoy. So let's create a new scope, and I'm going to create it on my user and call it React Native. Cool. Okay, so it's going to finish in a second. Here we go, here it's finished. And now I can finally tag the components, right? So Bit is going to release a version for each component. And by the way, if you modify something in this end component, right? Let's say you change a package, or you choose another linter. You don't want to use ESLint, you want to use something else, or you want to use another tester. You want to use Mocha instead of Jest, or I don't know what. You change something here, and Bit is going to automatically also release a version for all the components that are using this end, and this is called auto tagging, and this is a really smart system of Bit. When Bit recognizes the dependencies between components, and every time the component is modified, then its dependency is also going to be tagged. Okay, so yeah, let's wait for that. Okay, so now it's compiling our components with TypeScript, because this is what we have, the TypeScript compiler, we have it set in our end. And then it's testing our component. Yep, and okay, it's extracting the schema. And it's bundling, it's using Webpack to bundle the preview for our components, the compositions that you will see later on the cloud or on your local workspace when you run bit start like we saw before. And after this will finish to bundle, we will be able to export the newly created components to Bit Cloud. It's creating a package for the component now, so we can consume it later using npm or pnpm or whatever. And here we go. We have a new version for our components. So let's go ahead and export them to the cloud. And Bit is going to export both of them to the scope I created. So at the moment it's empty, right? But once we export the components, we will be able to see them on the remote cloud. And yep, here we go. So if I refresh now, I will be able to see my newly created components. Here you go. We have the spinner here, and we can see it spinning. Here we go. It's spinning. And we can see it spinning, and we can see the properties here, and we can see the dependencies. Okay, so you can see the dependencies here, and we can see the tests that we have here, the API reference, and the same goes for our React M here. And you know what? This is really cool. So now I want to use this spinner in my project. And let's say that I have an Expo project, right? And I use Expo. So let's create a new Expo project. And let's go npx create Expo app and call it monolith project. Okay, this is my legacy monolith project. When I want to use my beautiful independent component. Okay, so now it's going to install everything, and soon we will be able to use our component. So by the way, here you can see that we can use bit install or to install the component if we are building a component based app and we are only using bit. So this is the right way to do that. And we can also use import, and import means that we can import this code, the code for the component, and modify it from any workspace. So this is really cool because if you have a project, you don't have to even clone the all of your components. You just import the components that you need and start working on them. But we're not going to use that because we have a monolith, unfortunately, at the moment. We're going to use npm, right? So we can use npm here. And let's go to our project, see if it's installed already. Not yet. Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead, cd mono, yes. And let's open it with VS Code. Okay, so now I'm going to install my component. So let's go ahead and install it. And I'm going to install this spinner here in this project. Right? And after I install it, I can use it. Let's just do it like that. Import spinner, right? And let's do it like that. And I think we have an API, right? Let's see what's the API. And okay, so we have the text, the color, the size, and animating. Okay, so yeah, let's try it with nothing, like just like that. Okay, and run the Expo project. I go like this, and that's it. Let's see how it looks in our browser. Okay, so we have an error here. I see that Expo requires us to install these dependencies. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay. You always have to listen to what they tell you in the errors. If you don't listen to what they tell you, you never learn. Okay. So now we're going to install the missing dependencies here, and then we will be able to run our app and see the amazing spinner just spinning there. Let's have a look. You know what? Let's do npm start instead of that. Just like that. Okay, here it is. Are you ready to see the most amazing spinner in the world? Look at it spinning around. Yeah. It's so happy. It's so, but you can see that it's also a little bit sad inside of it. You can see a tear over there. You know why? Because it's an independent component running in a monolith project. But don't worry, my friend. Soon the whole world will be built from independent bit components. Don't worry. Okay, so basically, I had a lot of fun. I hope you had fun as well. And now we can use these components here. We can use it in any project. But the really cool thing is that we can import it to any project if we want. And any workspace, any Bit Workspace. So learn about Bit import, and you can go to our official docs site. And you can also read the blog post that I wrote about this subject. And I hope you had fun, and I wish you all the best, and see you next time.